final two races of the 2020 SACCS took place over a single weekend in the Free State town of Parys. Last week, we brought you the action from the first of those, and now it's the turn of the Toyota Gazoo Racing SA Vaal 400, the final round of the 2020 season. Welcome back to the Free State, where all this hard-charging action is brought to you by Toyota Gazoo Racing SA, Ford, Total Quartz, and Pirelli. Welcome back to Parys, and more precisely, the Parys Airfield, which served as the DSP and race HQ for both the Ford Parys 400, the penultimate round of this topsy-turvy, COVID-delayed 2020 season of South Africa's cross-country Premier Racing Series, and the final round of the year. Known as the Toyota Gazoo Racing SA Vaal 400, the season closer turned out to be a nail-biting affair. As has been the case throughout most of 2020, the race took place with strict COVID protocols in place. But by now, all the crews had adapted to the new normal, and wearing masks had become second nature. With round 4 finishing just a day earlier, there was some maths to be done in order to figure out the championship standings. Some titles had already been wrapped up though, so no fancy calculators were called upon. The overall production title, as well as the Class FIA Championship, had been clinched by Henk Ladergan and Brett Cummings the day before. The Toyota Gazoo Racing crew won each round of the 2020 season except for round number 4, where they finished a close second place. That was enough to secure their second consecutive title. The fight in the special vehicle categories had also drawn to a close, with Tim Howes and Gary Campbell clinching their first title. It was a tough battle in the open wheelers, but in the end, the Zarco Magnum crew brought home the silverware in fine style by taking a podium at the Ford Parys 400. Still up for grabs was the hotly contested Class T title, where a two-horse race between the Horn brothers and Terence Marsh had developed in the latter part of the season. Then came the Ford Parys 400, which was won by Vos Prinsloo, and suddenly the picture changed once again. This final round would be the decider for the championship for Class T. The same could be held true for Class G, where Nico Durant held a slender lead going into the final race, a lead that he'd be keen to protect until that final flag. So those are the numbers, and here are the faces as we caught up with some of the main players prior to the start of the TGRSA Vaal 400. With the battle in Class T far from over, we caught up with Johan Horn, who was locked in the battle for the title with Vos Prinsloo. The age-old Toyota versus Ford battle was raging fierce as ever once again.
Today we'll push hard and see if we can, they fixed the car, the team did a good job, so we'll push hard today, see what happens.
As for Prinsloo, the burly Ranger driver seemed an especially dangerous threat to the Horns championship aspirations, since he claimed to not give much of a damn.
Well, just to have fun, that's why we are here. We want to have fun and we don't care about the championship, it's all about fun.
There was also a battle in Class G where Nico Durant held a slender lead over Werner Mostert, but Durant had no doubt about his plans for the upcoming race.
3-point lead, 3-point down, so pressure's on him. I'm going to whack it today, though.
On the other hand, there were a couple of titles already sewn up, and the crews in those categories had no stress to deal with. One of them was the newly crowned double champion, Henk Ladergan.
Yesterday was quite stressful. Knew we were going into it with a bit of a lead, and we were the ones that could throw it away. So it was nice to get the points, to get the championship done. So today we can go out and hopefully just go and have some fun and play around.
TGRSA teammate Janil de Villiers was pleased to have his Spanish co-driver Alex Harrow back in the car with him, and the pair were looking forward to having some fun in Parys.
For sure. I mean, it was the first couple of kilometers yesterday. You know, we just had to find each other again, but after that it was 100% perfect again.
The one man who had upset the Works Toyota apple cart during the 2020 season was Chris Visser in the Total Exilium Toyota Hilux. The burly farmer and businessman broke Ladergan's season whitewash by winning round number 4 and was looking forward to another strong showing during the final round.
Before this race we came in, I think about 5th in the championship coming in here, so trying to get to 3rd, so that's my aim.
As for the boys in blue, their all-new Class FIA Ford Ranger has been in development during 2020 as they prepare for the 2021 season. As such, they've been racing with what is essentially a Class T car in the top class and doing a fine job of it too.
just got to have a clean race. All the rocks are visible, so yeah, let's hope we just have a clean race and we can push hard.
We're racing and we're here and we're doing what we love, so very excited. Yesterday we had a good result, so today hopefully we can do it again and have another good result for the team.
Over in the special vehicle category, Tim Howes and Gary Campbell had been crowned champions despite some nervous moments the day before. But with the title sealed, they were looking forward to simply having fun and a romp out in Parys.
Oh, it's fantastic. It was quite stressful yesterday because there were a lot of things that went wrong, but and it plays mind games. But we just stuck it out and we kept going.
We also caught up with Toyota Gazoo Racing SA's Glenn Hall. The team principal was pleased to have a Toyota race as a season closer and had no qualms about racing back-to-back nationals.
It's good to be here at the end of the year. We certainly didn't know it was going to be like this, and it's actually turned out very well, I think. And especially having the Toyota Parys 400 at the end is great news.
With the scene set, it was time to take on the short, sharp qualifying route for the TGRSA Vaal 400. At just 14 kilometers in length, the Pirelli qualifying race was going to be over almost before it started. But in terms of the race, it could play a pivotal role, as the sole purpose of the qualifier is to determine the starting position for the main race. And with most of the route identical to the day before, starting at the head of the field would ensure an open road over familiar terrain, a carrot dangling in front of the fast crews. The man who made the most of the moment was Toyota Gazoo Racing SA's Janelle de Villiers, with Alex Harrow beside him in the Hilux. The Dakar legend needed just 8 minutes and 25 seconds to cover the 14-kilometer loop, taking pole position in the process. He pipped teammates and newly minted champions Henk Ladergan and Brett Cummings by 4 seconds to steal an early march, but Ladergan was ready to take on his illustrious teammate come the main event. Ladergan, however, would have to keep his eyes on the rear-view mirrors as winners of the previous round, Chris Visser and Donnie Stassen, completed the qualifier just 1 second behind the Works Hilux in their own version of the same car. Some other crews posted spectacular times too, with Brian Baragwanath and Tay Perry going 4th fastest in the CRT, and Lance Woolridge, along with Alvin Vonk, posting the 5th fastest time in their Ford Castrol Racing Ranger. In the Pirelli qualifying race, the fastest of the Class T cars was that of Jacques Van Tonder and Sammy Redlinghuis in their NWM Ford Ranger. The pair were back in action after missing the bulk of the season, but were clearly finding their feet quickly. They had championship hopefuls Johan and Werner Horn just 4 seconds behind them in the Malalan Toyota Racing Hilux. But the Horns were matched for time by Malcolm and Frans Koch in a second NWM Ford Ranger, turning the Horns into the meat in a Ford sandwich. Winners of round 4, Vos Prinsloo and Andre Vermeulen, posted the 4th fastest time in quali, but lagged 26 seconds behind the car ahead of them. In the special vehicle category, Big Lance Trethewey and Adrian Roots may have missed out on a large part of the season, but the pair were back in fine form for the TGRSA Vaal 400. Their time of 8 minutes and 49 seconds was well clear of their nearest competition. That competition came almost unbelievably in the form of Trace Price-Moore and Sean Braithwaite driving a Class P bat. Despite the power deficit, the pair were just 22 seconds off the time set by Big Trethewey. A further 29 seconds separated Price-Moore in second from Sandra and Jaco Jonk, who recorded the 3rd fastest qualifying time in their Total Agri-supported Porter. Spare a quick thought for Howes and Campbell before we move on, though. The newly crowned champions barely got into the qualifier when a huge crash forced them to retire their Zarco Magnum. Luckily, the title had already been decided. And then there were the crews in Class G, or the Sidees, as they've become known. Remember, Nico Durant and Werner Mostert were locked in a stern battle for the title, but a quick look at the qualifying results revealed that neither of them topped the charts. As a matter of fact, it was Dean Bradbury and Dierwold Els who set the fastest time in the class with a sterling 9 minutes and 41 seconds.
Yesterday we had a bad day. We broke our arm. And today, yeah, we qualified hard, took it quiet, and just smoothed right through everything.
They had Hanno Bierman and Peter de Beer breathing down their tailpipes, though, just 11 seconds behind them. And behind them came Theo Erasmus and Edward Odendahl with a time of 10 minutes and 14 seconds. So no sign at this stage of the championship contenders. Let's take a quick look at the qualifying results in each category. It was de Villiers and Harrow at the top of the FIA standings, with Lottechan and Cummings in second, and Visser and Stassen rounding out the top three. Van Tonder and Reddinghuis showed great form to win out the Class Ts, with the Horns finishing ahead of the Cox by just a hair. Trethewey and Roots again blew the lights out in the top of the specials, with Trace Price-Moore recording a stonking run for second, and the Yonks completing the podium in third. And in Class G, it was Bradbury and Als who led ahead of Bierman and de Beer, with Erasmus and Odendahl in third. Noteworthy though, Werner and Leon Mostert went fifth fastest, with Durant and Hutting, the championship leaders, lagging a minute behind their nearest challengers for the title. And so, the dust briefly settled over the town of Parys, but it wasn't long before the crews were back in action, taking on the Toyota Gazoo Racing SA Vaal 400, the final round of the 2020 season.
Unleash the beast. It's all new 17 Vodacom Super Rugby Unlocked this Saturday.
Who will win between the cheetahs and the Griquas?
It's an absolute epic.
Griquas! Ay ko na umaka.
Amazing run from the young winger. Outstanding. Let's go Griquas! Hot first time! That is just terrific. Catch all the action live on Supersport. Passionately supported by Vodacom.
Davis's Figueiredo is an absolute savage.
Say hello to your worst nightmare.
I'm not there to take second place. I'm going to come in guns blazing and knock it out.
Alex Perez on fire.
Valentina Shevchenko, the gold standard in the women's flyweight division.
She's just that good. Oh, there's a tap. Jennifer Maia.
Another outstanding showcase for the UFC's flyweight division tonight.
Don't miss UFC 255 and both flyweight championship fights on the 22nd of November at 3 a.m. Live on Supersport, your world of champions. Only on DSTV.
WWE brings the Thunder tonight.
This is my island. Believe that.
The greater good is moving to Friday nights.
Unstoppable, unbeatable, unconquerable.
Welcome everyone to WWE's Thunderdome, and welcome to SmackDown.
During normal races, qualifying would take place a day before the main event, but 2020 is far from a normal year. And so, the final race of the year saw the Pirelli qualifying race take place in the morning, followed by the main event shortly after. The route for the TGRSA Vaal 400 was almost identical to that of the previous day's race, and as such, the crews would have a much easier time identifying the route. The race loops of 195 kilometers each, with a short visit to the DSP sandwiched in the middle, and on either side of that, plenty of rip-roaring action. Let's start with the action in Class G, the hotly contested side-by-side category, where Nico Durant, partnered with Rickers Hutting, was locked in a championship battle with Werner and Leon Mostert. But as things panned out, neither of them won the TGRSA Vaal 400. A tight battle saw Dean Bradbury and Dierwold Als take third place in the podium, posting a total time of 4 hours and 26 minutes on the nose. Bradbury and Als had shown great form at times, and another solid performance at the final round of the season saw them clinch a much-deserved podium position. At the head of the field, Theo Erasmus and Edward Odendahl didn't hang around. The pair have proven that they have the pace, and at the TGRSA Vaal 400, everything came together for them to secure the top spot on the podium. Another stonking performance, reaping just rewards. Bear in mind that they played second fiddle to Hanno Bierman and Peter de Beer at the end of the first racing loop, trailing the early leaders by more than 7 minutes. But then, Bierman and De Beer had some issues, opening the door for Erasmus and Odendaal, who had no qualms about capitalizing on the demise of their rivals.
It feels like the Botswana 1000 today. Dit is vreeslik lekker. Ek kan net dankie sê vir die Hemelse Vader, vir my span wat saam met my gehelp het.
So that was first place and third place. But what about the second step of the podium? Would it be the Mosterts or Durant to clinch the title? As it turned out, Nico Durant had a clear plan for the race. In his own words, from the morning, he was going to thump it. And thump it he did, posting the second fastest time over the race distance. And even though he trailed the race winners by the best part of 6 minutes, he'd still done more than enough to secure his first ever championship. And while we're talking about the special vehicle categories, let's have a look at what transpired in Class A and, in this case, also Class P. The special vehicle category title had already been sewn up by Tim Howes and Gary Campbell, but having tripped up during qualifying, they were out of action for this main race. But the TGRSA Vaal 400 proved a tough event, which took its toll on a number of other competitors too. Husband and wife pairing, Sandra and Jaco Jonk, retiring after loop number 1 due to more mechanical issues. Andre Fourie and Hendrikus Pienaar, however, kept their noses clean and raced to the first podium of their career at national level. Their time of 4 hours and 25 minutes and 30 seconds was good enough for third place in Class A and a fourth overall in the special vehicle category. The winners of the qualifying race, Lance Trethuri and Adrian Roots, lost time due to more mechanical problems for them, a rare occasion, not to mention a puncher dropping them down the order, and in the end, the big man with his little navigator had to settle for third place in the category, which meant second place in Class A. Trace Price-Moore and Sean Braithwaite were the sole Class P entries, facing up to the more powerful cars in Class A, but the Bat pairing did their class proud. Not only were they the second fastest special vehicle in qualifying, but also the second fastest special in the race overall. A spectacular performance, which saw them lose out on the win by only 3 minutes and 16 seconds.
We knew we just had to keep it clean, and every corner you came around, things had changed from the previous lap. You know, there are a lot of lurkers and things that guys managed to pull up out the ground. So yeah, it was tough, and we just had to make sure we made it through.
Which brings us to the top step of the special vehicle podium and new winners in the category to boot. Bulla Buatis and Jay Pretorius are old hands when it comes to cross-country racing, but the Skalkberger Motorsport crew have been out of the game for nearly a decade. A great drive in Paris, however, showed that racing is like riding a bike. You never forget. The pair brought their Porter home in 3 hours, 58 minutes and 57 seconds, more than fast enough to clinch victory at the last round of the season. Let's move on to the production vehicle category, where the fight for the Class T title was going down to the wire. Remember, the Horn brothers had to beat Vos Prinsloo and Andre Vermeulen to secure second in the championship, but the brothers would face stern competition. Prinsloo and Vermeulen had won the previous round, and Terence Marsh and Leseko Zulu were also still in with the shout. So by no means was this a foregone conclusion. As it turns out, the threat from Prinsloo and Vermeulen never resulted in a challenge, as they first struggled with electrical issues before the front diff on their Ranger cried enough shortly before the end of the first racing loop. They weren't the only Class T Ford Rangers not to see out the final round, however, as teammates from the Neil Woolridge Motorsport Racing Camp, Jacques Van Tonder and Sammy Redlinghuis, rolled their Ranger on the opening loop, making things just slightly easier for the Horns up front. Not that they were handed a highway to victory, mind you. Gary Berthold and Jeff Minott were given a 15-minute penalty for not letting a competitor through after searching for the route in the qualifier, largely sidelining them for the race. But the pair can be very quick and recorded the fourth fastest time on the day without the penalty that had been at the top of the standings. Third fastest on the day was that of Marsh and Zulu in the Redline Motorsport in this Navara. They finished 10 minutes and 28 seconds behind the winners, though, after starting from the back of the grid due to not completing the qualifying in the morning. It was a gutsy performance, which kept them right in the fight. The second step of the podium, just 1 minute and 2 seconds ahead of Marsh and Zulu, belonged to Malcolm and Frans Koch. The men from the Northwest Province showed excellent form throughout the TGRSA Vaal 400, qualifying their NWM Ford Ranger in third and bagging second in the main race. It was a power performance, but not quite good enough for the win. By now, it should be easy to figure out the top step of the podium, as well as the 2020 Class T title. That went to the Horn brothers, Johan and Werner from Malalaan Toyota. former champions faced stiff competition in recent times, but prevailed at the final round, bringing their Gifbail home in 3 hours, 32 minutes and 20 seconds, a winning margin of nearly 10 minutes, as one would expect from the champs.
This season wasn't easy for us. It was challenging. We had to work hard. The team really worked hard. Every night, fixing the car. In the pits, they had to fix the car.
The final class to cover is the big one. With 12 cars having qualified for the main event, Class FIA is by far the biggest in the sport at present, and the competition is fierce. With that said, Henk Ladergan and Brett Cummings had already wrapped up the title, their second on the trot, for Toyota Gazoo Racing SA. Even so, the new champions were sure to aim for victory on their home event. To make things even more spicy, all 12 Class FIA cars who started the main race at the TGR SA Vaal 400 also finished it. It was a tough day in the office for Ford Castrol's Lance Woolridge and Alvin Vonk in their Ranger. The pair suffered a suspension collapse in loop number 2 after a highly competitive opening loop. They may have finished the race in the results, but in reality, this was an event they'd just as soon forget. Ahead of Woolridge and Vonk came Johan van Staden with Leander Pienaar beside him. The Alfa Renault Duster pairing didn't quite have a weekend of smooth sailing either, but they completed the race nonetheless in a time of 4 hours, 48 minutes and 34 seconds. Rookie Philip Buerta, who entered a Nissan Navara for the weekend in Paris, finished just over 30 minutes ahead of Van Staden, cracking the top 10 in the process and completing what must be seen as a very successful maiden outing on the SACCS. Marius and Jolinda Fourie in their Ford Ranger pipped Buerta and Janse van Vuren by 26 minutes for 9th place, whilst Clint Weston and Gerrit Snyman recorded a time of 3 hours, 35 minutes and 17 seconds in their Mercedes X-Class for 8th place. 7th place belonged to Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner in their Redline Motorsport Navara, whilst TGR SA's Shamir Variawa and Dennis Murphy managed only the 6th fastest time in the race. Were it not for 2 punches on the opening loop, however, the works driver may well have finished much higher up the order. As it turned out, nearly 5 minutes separated him from Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer in the second Ford Castrol Racing Ranger. The younger Woolridge brother pegged 5th place after a powerful push in the last race of the year. A puncher relegated winners of round 4, Chris Visser and Donnie Stassen, to 4th place in their Total Exilium Toyota Hilux, just 2 minutes ahead of Woolridge and Dreyer. The big man was hoping for a strong result, but with the competition as tight as it is, a puncher can really throw a spanner in the works. Which brings us to the sharp end of proceedings here in Paris. After a cautious race, Brian Baragwanath and Tay Perry brought their monstrous Century Racing CR6 home in a time of 3 hours, 20 minutes and 46 seconds. Good enough to take 3rd place on the day, and very nearly good enough for a second too. But Toyota Gazoo Racing SA's Janelle de Villiers and navigator Alex Harrow did just enough to retain that second spot after a strong performance that saw them lead in the race up to the 300-kilometre marker. A puncher put paid to their assault, however, but they recovered well to cross the finish line, just 20 seconds ahead of the hard-charging Baragwanath. And finally, to the victors go the spoils. Not only did Ladergan and Cummings win the war in 2020, but they also came through with a win in the final round. The pair nipped at the heels of their Toyota Gazoo Racing SA teammates until 3/4 of the way through the race, when de Villiers dropped time due to the puncher. In the end, Ladergan and Cummings made things look easy when they romped to their 4th victory of the year, crossing the line 2 minutes and 9 seconds ahead of their teammates. Another power performance from the double champions.
Yesterday I was really nervous coming into it, so I think the nerves got us a little bit, but it was good to have a semi-clean run and at least wrap up the championship yesterday. Like I said, today we just went out, had some fun.
So that's how it happened. And here's confirmation of the results from the TGR SA Vaal 400 Round 5 of the 2020 SACCS. In the specials, it was Buller Burtis and Jay Pretorius who took the overall and Class A honours. Bryce Moore and Braithwaite were second overall and first in Class P, whilst Erasmus and Odendahl brought their Class G sidey home in first place and third on the overall standings. Class T saw the Horns triumph in both the battle and the wall, with the Cox in second place and Marsh and Zulu completing the podium. And finally, the Class FIA podium consisted of Lottachan and Cummings on the top step, with teammates De Villiers and Harrow in second, and Baragwanath and Perry taking third. And with that, the 2020 SACCS season drew to a close. There was huge joy for Lottachan and Cummings, who emerged victorious not only from the last race of the year, but the championship as a whole. For the Horn brothers, 2020 brought another title, and one that they had to work hard for, with the chase going down to the final round and the final loop. In the specials, it was a joyous occasion for Burtis and Pretorius, winning the final race, and even though their last outing ended with a crumpled Zarko, Tim Howes and Gary Campbell had every reason to cheer after taking the category honours. And in Class G, a first title for Nico Durant and Rickers Hutting, despite a tough closing race and plenty of pressure in the class. Who would have thought when we started the 2020 season that the year would turn out as it did? Things got underway with plenty of spectators and smiles all round at the Mpumalanga 400, way back before the term lockdown was really a thing. But then came the COVID crunch, and for the longest time, it seemed that there would be no SACCS championship in 2020. With the easing of lockdown, however, came an opportunity to go racing once again, and the SACCS community cautiously emerged to take on the Bronkhorstspruit 400 in August, 6 months after round number 1. But then the cross-country community, as well as the SACCS organisers, rallied to put together a spectacular run to the end of the year. First with the Total Agri 400 in Berteville, which was a resounding success, and then the double-header in Parys, which capped a truncated and mixed-up season with some of the best racing we'd seen in a very long time. Yes, the 2020 season was different. There was no Toyota Desert 1000, for instance, and some of the races on the calendar were either cancelled outright or the venues moved. But in the end, we came together to do what we love, to go racing. And more than that, we managed to crown some champions, help our lads prepare for the upcoming Dakar Rally, and share our passion for the sport that we love. We'll see you again in 2021, hopefully without our masks on. The season-ending action from Parys was proudly brought to you by Toyota Gazoo Racing SA, Ford, Total Quartz and Pirelli.